has no regard for the principles of honor and integrity. He has betrayed us and the people of Texas, and if he's given the opportunity, he will continue to abuse the power.
This is a political trial. I would suggest to you this is a political witch hunt. I would suggest to you that this trial has displayed for the country to see a partisan fight within the Republican Party. Let's just call it for what it is. That's what we're seeing here. It's being played out on TVs across the country. There is a battle for power.
Ken Paxton's lawyers taking on the House managers as senators now debate the future of the impeached Attorney General of Texas. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you for sticking with us. I'm Jennifer Sanders. KXAN's Monica Madden is live at the state capitol right now, Mon, with the latest details.
Hey, Jen. Well, as you know, we just finished up in closing arguments of this historic impeachment trial of suspended Attorney General Ken Paxton. And we kind of went a little bit out of order in this process. When we started, we heard from House Manager Chairman Andrew Murr. He is the Republican who has been one of the key spearheaders, if you will, in this entire effort. He only did 10 minutes at the beginning before passing it off to defense, and we're going to get into that in a little minute. But I want to talk to you about what recently happened just before we came out here into the rotunda, and that was State Representative Jeff Leach, a Republican from the Dallas area, Collin County. And I think that was a very intentional choice in having him finish off in the last 10 minutes of the House's closing arguments when they came back to use the rest of that 1 hour of allotted time they had. Leach talked about how Paxton is and was one of his dear friends and a mentor figure to him. He talked about how he would, work with him on campaigns, doing door knocking, and that this has been one of the most difficult decisions of his career or life even, but talked about the gravity and the historic nature of this, and closed with a MLK Jr. quote to the senators, asking them to rely on their courage and the facts and not about the politics of this all, which is certainly a very influential factor in this trial. But first, I want you to hear from a little bit of what we heard from Chairman Andrew Murr. He really emphasized in his closing arguments, both in the beginning in his first 10 minutes and then in the end using the rest of his 40 minutes, about the whistleblowers. Those are the figures who really got us started to where we are here now. The former senior staff in the Office of Attorney General who reported Paxton to the FBI because they felt they had enough firsthand experience that he was committing crimes and abusing his office in effort to help his campaign donor, friend, and Austin real estate developer Nate Paul. Take a listen to what Murr had to say.
Mr. Paxton put the risk of the citizens of Texas, of the businesses of Texas, and the lives of law enforcement at stake. As the state's top cop, this conduct is and was inexcusable.
Now, similar thematically to what we have heard from in defense throughout the trial, this 9-day trial, Tony Buzbee started out with the closing arguments for Paxton's team in defense of the suspended Attorney General. And he took a very combative tone, offering lots of punches towards the whistleblowers and lots of fiery quotes. We've often heard throughout this trial, if you've been following, there's no coincidences in Austin. And he kept going back to that phrase to point to his case to the jury that, none of this is by coincidence. Paxton is innocent, and he took direct aim at the whistleblowers, who 3 of them were sitting up in the gallery listening to this as their former boss sat on the Senate floor for the first time since day one, waiting to hear what his fate might be. Now, Buzbee, again, like I said, was at some points being very aggressive and was mocking some of the whistleblowers, including David Maxwell. He is a former Texas Ranger and former top deputy, led the law enforcement division in the Attorney General's office, and again tried to discredit the whistleblowers in the testimony that we heard from them. And his colleague Dan Cogdell took a little bit of a different approach. We've got some sound from both of them that I want you to take a listen to right now.
There is shame here, and the shame sits right there that they would bring this case in this chamber with no evidence. I am proud to represent Attorney General Ken Paxton. If this can happen to him, It can happen to anyone.
It's not about Ken Paxton. It's about whether or not you have a reasonable doubt. I suspect he did some things that you probably didn't like. I get that. I understand that. But that's not the issue. The issue is whether the proof is there that is so convincing that it convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt, the same standard of proof that's in a death penalty case. It's not. It's not. It's not.
Notably, both defense and prosecution directly took aim trying to appeal to some of the Republican senators who are about to decide the fate of one of their fellow conservatives who many of them have worked with, were friends with, as we heard from Representative Leach. Defense, pointed out something that we've heard from more further conservative members online, notably former President Donald Trump weighing in this week in support of Paxton, saying the reign of the Bush family is over. It is, this is a witch hunt, and is because these people do not like Ken Paxton that we are here today. There is not enough evidence. You should not convict. Whereas, as we heard from Leach, as I pointed out on the other side of things, that they acknowledged we have this friendship with Paxton. We have supported him and his conservative policies, but the evidence is there that he did not uphold his oath of office when he took this duty to be Attorney General of the state of Texas.
And Monica, for our viewers at home who might just be joining us, walk us through what happens next.
Well, now we are on a break as the jury heads into deliberation. Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor who was presiding over this trial as judge, gave a couple closing comments after the end of closing arguments to remind the public of what that process looks like. We don't know how long deliberation could take. Only 30 out of the 31 senators will be doing that, and it will be private behind closed doors, just like you see with any other jury, except for State Senator Angela Paxton, who senators previously voted cannot have a vote on this because her husband is the one who is on trial. So we don't know how long this could take. Dan Patrick said perhaps senators might have to sleep in their office if that's what it takes. If it is a few hours, so be it. If it needs to be until Sunday, so be it. So really just leaving the door open for senators to take time and really think about the gravity of this situation before they make a decision in this historic impeachment trial. Jen?
All right, Monica Madden live for us this afternoon at the state capitol. Thank you so much. Well, KXAN News will provide live coverage of the Paxton trial verdict on air and online when it happens. So just stay with KXAN and KXAN.com for complete coverage. To give you a little context here, Texas successfully impeached and removed an official only twice in state history. The most recent happened in 1976 with state district judge O.P. Carrillo, and he actually spent 3 years in prison for tax fraud. But the most high-profile impeachment happened to Governor James Paul Ferguson. That was back in 1917. A two-time governor, Ferguson was impeached on multiple claims, including misusing public funds, and much of this stemmed from a fight with the University of Texas over faculty members he wanted to remove. And he actually vetoed much of the money for UT. Ferguson tried to run again, taking his impeachment and removal to court. He eventually ran his wife, Miriam's winning campaign. That was in 1924. She would win again in 1932, and Ma Ferguson would be the first woman governor in state history.